Welcome to my apiary. The design I've come up with, I need 4 more little pieces for each of these, and I'll try to draw this out. So we'll have 4 sides, as you can imagine. Okay. And there's different ways you can kind of bring those corners together. You can do a miter. I have what's called a miter lock bit, and those are really nifty. I hope I show you that sometime, but today's not the day. A butt joint really isn't what you want. Then you get end grain showing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mill a little piece that just goes around here. It's basically is going to be a square of 3/4 by 3/4, okay? And then I'm just going to mill it out and take that part out. It'll be a 1/4 here, and I'll take a 1/2 out of it, okay? So this dimension will be a 1/4. So then that means it'll protrude past each. So I'll draw this bigger to make it easier to show. Okay. So this depth here will be a 1/2, and this will be 1/4. So again, a 1/2 here and a 1/4 here. So I need to start with 4 little pieces for each species that are 4.5 inches long. Actually, they're 4 3/4 long. Okay, so I'm just going to cut those up here, and then we can probably end up going back to the dado blade just to mill this out. Got enough raw material here. The saw blade is appropriate height, and I just need 4 pieces, so I can get at least a couple out of here, maybe 3, at least 1 out of here. This is pretty much one already. That's a little over 1/4, 3/4, so I'll just trim that like that. Some of this walnut is not necessarily stuff you want to make structural parts out of, but being near knots and stuff, it gets some really interesting figure in it. Quite pretty. I think those are supposed to be 4 3/4 inch long. But I think what we need to do now is we need to go back to the dado blade and mill out the 1/2 inch. You always want to make sure you do that cut safely. If you don't do the cut safely, that saw ends up kicking lumber all over the shop and maybe at you. It can really hurt you. Or damage the saw, I mean, if nothing else. What I'm concerned with is when I run this through the saw, I'm going to be cutting more than half of it away. I'm going to end up with a piece that looks like this. Okay, I'm going to be cutting this away. And the problem with that is, once you cut that material away, that becomes very unstable to run through the saw. Yeah, I'm just thinking. I'll think about how to support that and make that a safer cut while I change the saw over again. In the meantime, you can comment in the comments section how you do that, what you think I should do to support that. I just dropped the nut down the hole. I usually do that with my left hand, and my right hand dropped it. Let that be a lesson to me. Oh, she went all the way down too. Oh, bother. I got it back. I had to go and take the dust collection, pour it off the back of the saw, reach in there and get it. Oh, gee. That muscle memory thing, you know, I was talking to my wife about muscle memory the other day. And I dropped that because I was using my right hand, which I usually use my left hand to do that. And my left hand has the muscle memory built in for that job. My right hand doesn't so much. I think I've decided what to do here. Well, okay, I'm thinking ahead of how I'm going to do this, and I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I'll put that nut on there. That'll make things turn a lot better. That's how you crash your car on the way home. You know, you get thinking about all the things you need to do when you get home, instead of so much thinking about the task at hand. This is a box I built when I first got this table saw, and this box fits over this fence nice and snug, and it doesn't come off of there easily at all. So what I can do is I can run this up there. I can expose a 1/2 inch of that dado blade, and this is going to be a kind of a freestanding piece, so it doesn't really matter if it's super precise cut. I want to get them all the same, but I want to cut them mostly 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch high. Okay. Again, I'll start with a piece of scrap here. See if I get what I want. Here's the big question. How do you make sure when I run that through that when I get to a certain point, there's not going to be any support here. It doesn't tip like that. And I believe this might work. I'm not trapping that workpiece between the blade and the featherboard. But I am going to run 2 featherboards here. Now this one, I could break this one down into a single. I should. I'm just kind of lazy. Okay. So this, I think, will work. Because by the time it exits this featherboard, it will be engaged with that featherboard. So I can push that with my thin push stick here. What do you think? Is that going to work? We'll soon find out. Do that 7 more times. Okay, we'll see if a different species mills differently in there. I hope not. That was working pretty good. I always enjoyed milling walnut. It seems to mill really nicely. I would say that went very well. Quite pleased. The old dado blade is a bit rough, but nothing I can do about that at the moment. I'm not sure I want to even sharpen it. I've sharpened it before. It's very expensive to sharpen. And yeah, I'm just not sure I want to even sharpen it. I think I want to buy a new one sometime. I have the big build coming up for the covers, and I use the dado blade for rabbiting the end cleats on the covers. And so I'm going to be beating the crap out of this dado blade coming up this few months. And I think when I'm done that, it's going to go in the garbage. I'll force myself to buy a new one. Okay, these are the next parts. So these will make up the base. And again, they're not cut to length yet. So they'll be something like this. And I need two things. As with the cover, there's that, I'm going to say it's a dado. This is a rabbit, but it will be a dado for the side to fit into. I need a rabbit here on these pieces on the inside for the sides to slot into. Not only do I need that, I also need a rabbit on the bottom for the bottom to slot into. Now this doesn't have to be, whereas the side is going to be about 1/4 of an inch thick to sit in that. So I want that to be 1/4 of an inch. This can be wider so that I have more material. I'm probably going to drive some small screws through the, it's just going to be a piece of plywood on the bottom, very thin plywood. So I can make that bottom one like this, wider. And the only thing that'll mean is then the opposing one, I'll draw that here. If I make that over here, for example, then the opposing one has to have a tongue that will slide right over and meet there. Okay, so that's my only consideration there. I have to make sure those are long enough. My diagram I only showed 1/4 of an inch there. So it looks like 6 inches is what I need. That's 6-inch ruler, so I've got way more than enough length on those. Okay. All right. So since the long one will determine some of the dimensions on the short one, I will mill the long ones first. So again, I need, that's 1.25 inches, isn't it? I could have left that maybe. What do you think? If I went 3/4, that's too much. Yeah, let's just do a 1/2 inch there again. So I'll make a 1/2 inch interior rabbit on those. Just in like manner that I just did, really. I'll do exactly the same as I did last time. We're coming down to it where I need to select my faces that I want to show. The next cut on these is similar. It's on the other side. It's the same depth, but it's 1/4 of an inch in. So this is about a 1/2, and this one will be 1/4. I'll do it this way. This will be about oh, not that way. This way, 1/4. So I'll be taking this piece out for the sides to fit into. So I have to make sure I do that right when I run it like this. I'm gonna jump right in because I've got these set already. I think that's good. It's, again, logically it's the same depth. I've moved it to a quarter, and we should be good. Should be good to go there. You can't see what I'm doing. Sorry about that. I need a camera operator. Yeah, sorry about that. Camera operator is more of a beekeeper than camera operator. So I've created myself a bit of a logistical conundrum here, because the last two pieces I need to mill for these need to have the opposite profile milled in the end, so that they will go right into where these are. Got to fit right in like that. Okay. How do you do that? So first of all, I got to cut a pretty mean slot in this. I've got to cut a 1/2-inch slot in that for this tongue, and then cut off 1/4 inch of that on that side. I don't know how to do that. You can't. You need a jig. I might end up building a jig for this, because to run something like that through a saw, boy, that is nasty. That's a, you can't do that. There are jigs you can build. I could probably cut all 4 of these at one time if I built the appropriate jig. I have to mill them, then I have to cut them to length. This is going to determine the width of the box, so I need to get that right. I knew there was a solution. It looks like I'll be pausing to build a jig. This will be a handy jig to have. I actually had one of these. It was not a homemade wooden one. It was a steel and cast iron store-bought unit, which was kind of the same idea. But I sold it a few years ago. I wasn't using it, so I sold it. But I have since found a use for it from time to time. So this is called a tenoning jig, and that's exactly what it does. It holds a workpiece vertically so that you can run it across the saw blade in that orientation. So this Woodsmith plans. These are great plans. I really like how they lay these out. And I'll be stopping to build this, so maybe we'll just take a little bit of a sidebar and build a tenoning jig. I need to get some material out. This is all made of 3/4 MDF, and I have some in the plywood cabinet there. Their plans are very well laid out with everything you need. So that's the plan, literally. So for making my jig, I want to use this MDF. This is a brand new sheet, however. And anybody's used MDF, you know this stuff's very heavy. But I wanted to showcase this jig I have here. This is called a leg up. Highly recommend it. If you find yourself tipping full sheets or large sheets of sheet goods onto your table saw, get yourself a leg up. Watch how this works. This is so easy. The hardest thing is just tipping it up, and you don't even have to lift the whole sheet onto the jig. And then literally just giving it a pull here, and that's so easy. It's literally one-handed to put that sheet on the table. So the jig holds onto it there, so it doesn't just slide off. And then just slide it this way. The jig lets go. Your sheet's on the table. Bob's your uncle. I've milled these front and back parts for the bottom, a quarter of an inch in, a quarter of an inch down, and then quarter inch down and half inch in for the bottom, where the bottom panel will fit in there. And now I need to mill quite a complex little part here, which is the end piece, because the end piece needs to intersect, needs to go in here. So what I have to do is put a groove in the middle that's a half an inch deep, and then take a quarter of an inch out of this so that it'll mate up to that. Now the important thing is that this part meet up to this, but it's also important that this all fit nicely when it's done, because this is going to be the end and it's going to be seen. So I need to be bang on with these cuts. And I want to do this on my table saw. And cutting material like this, you can't just cut material across the saw like that. You know, you can't hold it against the fence and cut it across the saw. That is a big time no-no without a jig. This might be known by other names like a tenoning jig. I won't go into running tenons, but I'm kind of cutting a bit of a complex tenon here. And so what I need to do, so this sits on the fence and it's stable, so it's accurate. Plus my piece will sit here. I'm going to clamp that there, and it'll run through the blade thusly. So we've got to cut the first one. We need to cut I think I'm going to cut that shallow one first. It's a quarter of an inch wide, and yeah, so it's a quarter. I have to keep organized here. So what I'm trying to accomplish is I need a tenon on the bottom, and then I need to, so this doesn't get cut, I need to cut a half an inch in here and a quarter of an inch in there. So I take that material out, and I'll run this on the saw that way so that the part I'm not cutting stays next to the fence, and then I'll be cutting on the outside and halfway through. So all I really need to start is a blade height of a quarter of an inch. And I searched and searched. I have quite a few blades right now, and I searched and searched for a flat top blade. This is what's called a triple chip. Some people call it a triple chip blade. And the teeth alternate. There's one tooth that's nice and square like that, and the next tooth has a kind of a bevel like that. So, you know, three chips. And so this is a triple chip. Most of my every other blade I saw in my stash is what's called an ATB, alternating top bevel. The tooth comes like this, and different angles, but some of them are quite a good rake there, and like this, and then the next tooth is the other way. Okay, so when you cut through the material with this blade, you're going to get a pretty flat bottom cut, and this is not going to give you that. This will give you a cut that looks like this. Okay, that's not what I want. My dado blade has a flat top on it. I could use my dado blade here. However, the reason I don't is I could set my dado blade to cut an exact 1/4 inch wide groove. But I don't know that my groove needs to be exact 1/4 inch wide. What my groove needs to be is it needs to be exactly as wide as this. So that's why I'm going to run that through here, and I can sneak up on that fit until that piece fits this little tenon perfectly. And then I can start cutting this away until it seats exactly the way it should. That's the theory anyway. But I'm going to cut the outside one first. So I need a 1/4 inch high blade. I'll get this out of my way for a moment. I'd rather have the blade too low to start with. I can always bring it up. And this jig, since I haven't used it, I think I'm going to fix that. Since I haven't used it, I'm going to be cutting through that vertical fence. It's pretty easy to adjust this throat plate. It's as easy as finding the correct wrench. I had a little set of wrenches on my saw, but they've gone missing. Okay, there's the one. What is that? 4mm. Okay, so these are just little set screws that push against little tabs under the table. I can feel that that's low. I think they vibrate a little bit, go out of adjustment. So with my little ruler, I can tell that it's hitting the table. So I can screw that down a little. Very tight, so see, I can tell already. That side seems to be okay. Maybe a touch high even. Okay, it is closer. And we'll have to go, what is that? It doesn't even hang on. We'll have to go with that. I'd rather use hardwood, but in the absence of hardwood, we use softwood. Pieces against the fence tightly, and obviously now it's tight against that face. And now my job is to, well, I need to leave a 1/2 inch the other side of that blade, which should be there. Let's cut that. Yes, indeed, I drew that piece back across the blade. Probably not the best idea. This is not going to work either, because this triple chip blade isn't giving me a flat bottom. I'm going to have to sling up a single dado blade and use that, because they're flat. The crazy thing is, I just took that dado blade out. It seems like all I do is switch dado blade in and out. That's too bad. I must get a flat top rip blade. A rip blade typically has a flat top, but that one does not. And since I need to make a groove, like I said, that is not just exactly 1/4 of an inch wide, but I need to make a groove that's going to fit. So if that, if that little tenon is more than 1/4, if that little tenon is less than 1/4, then that has to be reflected in the groove that I cut. So I can't just say, oh, it's going to be 1/4. See, this is a little bit of a strange situation. There's nothing wrong with it, but I'm going to have to put my blade stiffener on. There's not enough width there to get the nut back on the arbor. And so now I have a different problem. Now I've got a great huge hole in my throat plate. So see if that's going to cause me problems or not. I think it will with how I was planning to do this, but I can change my plan. I have a homemade throat plate here. If it's flat enough, I think that's my answer. There's a little bit of crap stuck on it. Okay. I made those out of some, I think they're PVC panels that I had here. And so I just made some zero clearance throat plates. Of course, a dado zero clearance plate is only zero clearance once, but this is what you call zero clearance, so it's very narrow, and the throat plate hugs the blade. That's for the ripper and the crosscut blades. I'm going to run a 1/4 high and a 1/2 inch higher. Okay, that's what I want. That's too close to the fence though. I think my workpiece was not against the fence. Yeah, it's a little bit warped. Okay, I take the plunge here. I'm gonna actually start on the outside. These are short pieces. It's not good. Working with short pieces is dangerous. But it's in there snugly now. Keep your fingers out of it. Okay, that is bang on for depth. That one is going to sit, because that's actually going to sit in like this. So the relationship between this one and this one is correct. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 8 cuts like that. So I have to make sure that I keep this corner and this corner. I have to decide which I want to be up here. This is the top. This cut will determine which is the top of that piece. That dado blade's not very sharp. I can kind of smell it. Okay, so that's the outside of that. That's the outside of that cut. I could cut the slot now, just so I get that right. Okay, I'm gonna try that. Actually, I can just cut this one. Okay, so I cut that slot. Looks like the bottom of that slot is okay. It's actually going to go on this way. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and cut those. And then I have to make it wider. Slot's got to be deeper than that though. That's only 1/4 of an inch. So I might as well go ahead and cut that 1/2 inch deep. No, I'm going to change what I'm doing here. I'll finish this cut. That should be 1/2 inch from the blade, shouldn't it? That's what I did. I measured to the fence. It's 1/4 inch. Oh no, I measured from the jig. Okay. Now I'll do this over again. I don't want to change the height until I'm done with this cut. I think that's going to work. If it's a mistake, it's going to be mistake times 8. So these fit together pretty good. Little tiny gap here and here. So that means this finger here is yet a little bit too long. I've already trimmed this one. I would say that fit is just about as good as you could expect. So, what I did here was, since you may have seen my recent video on how to make cuts like this safely, and I realized that one of the reasons I was taking some shortcuts and maybe doing things a little bit less than ideally in a safety context was that my miter gauge, I always had to set it up with a new fence and configure it and the whole thing. So what better reason than safety to justify buying a new toy? So I bought a new toy, and this is a very nice miter gauge and fence system. It's called a Incra Miter 1000 SE, and I've looked at a lot of these things online and in stores, and this one came pretty highly recommended by Mark Spagnolo, Wood Whisperer. I'll put a video here, link that for you so you can look at that video and you can see the different reasons that he said that this was probably one of the better units that you could buy on the market today. Now, unfortunately, I had previously purchased the Incra Miter V120, which is also an excellent miter gauge, but it doesn't come with a fence system. So you have to build your own fence. I just never took the time to build a fence for it. So that's just, it is what it is. These are very similar, but they're not the same. And they use the same kind of an idea for locking in. This is really one of the best things about this. It locks in to these teeth for your various degrees of cut. And once you calibrate it, then you're bang on every time. You don't have to line it up with your eyes. So I have a very nice V120 for sale, if anybody wants it. So I'm using my new fence for this, and I've just set my stop block here, and I'm just skinning the end off of this. It's kind of good that I have to cut it because the old dado blade left kind of a ragged edge there. And so I'm just going to run these along here and clean them up. Some of them are a little tight. Oh, that's very nice. I'll maybe have to massage them to get them perfectly fitting. So there's milling to be done yet on these. And the milling that I have to do is I need to make this same profile, 1/4 of an inch rabbet here and a 1/2 inch rabbet here. But for now, let me get this one. This is, I got the painted end on that, and I don't know what's going to happen. This one's going to have to go the other way. I made a mistake on this one, so I have to put it on the inside. I got painted in on that one too. Okay, these have to be massaged a little bit, so I'm not going to force them together. I just wanted to get them kind of seated here so you could see what's happening. Okay, so you see what's happening here now. I've got a little rabbet here, and I will have here and here. And then my side panels are going to stand in there, okay? These have to be cut to length still. They're only about 4.5 inches. And then these little guys are going to stand in here just as a finish for the corner where the two panels meet. This is coming together pretty good. I'm quite happy with it. Many of these have a small piece of wood left on there, but that utility knife makes quick work of that.